welcome to Desi Girl Magazine. I'm Urvi, and today we are starting a new series for mental health awareness. And our guest is Dr. Devika Srivastava. We already done interview with her, so probably you guys know about her. She's a very good psychologist in Texas, and so we teamed up with her, and we are going to do multiple lives with her. So our today's topic is South Asian and South Asian American family issues. So as it's like a mix of a two culture, because maybe your parents born in a different country and then you born here, so you grew up with your original culture as well as American culture, and what can it bring to in your family with and what kind of issues you can face. So today we will discuss about family issues with Dr. Devika, and let me go ahead and add her. And so you are going somewhere. I know we are a lot of hearing about the Delta variant. So and even LA County has a compulsory mask policy back again. So if you are going out, please be safe. Please, follow all the protocols and just take care of yourself and your family. Hey, hi.
Hi.
How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. Thank you for joining.
No, of course. I saw the invite and then it disappeared and I'm old and I'm like, where did it go? How do I get back on? So thank you for sending again.
Yeah, yeah. How are you?
I'm good. It's Friday. It's Friday.
Yeah. How was your day?
It was long. It was very long. And I apologize if I'm kind of tired. I have a stomach virus. So
Oh,
yeah, but
oh, thank you
long
so
show.
much for still, yeah, like you are not feeling well and still you joined us. Thank you so
But
much.
no, this is important. And I love, I like you a lot and you're my friend now. So, and I think that you're helping.
Oh, I think I have lost. Okay. Yeah, you're
Okay.
back now. Yeah.
I think I have to hold the phone. How, like, do I keep on having to hold the phone or
Or
can I?
you can just place somewhere where we can see you, and that's fine. Yeah.
Okay, let me see. When it went to sleep before, so let's make sure. Okay, I'll just keep
Yeah.
on touching my phone.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, so thank you so much for doing this series as well. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Yeah, it's like we want to help the community, and first time when I talked with you, like I really feel that you are the person, who can talk about the other side. Because if I'm just giving an example, if I am feeling low, then I
Hmm.
might not know why I'm feeling low, but you are a psychologist, so you know how I can help myself,
Yeah.
so that way we can help so many people to just help themselves and
Hmm.
come out of their difficult time.
No, it makes a lot of sense. Sometimes you don't know what's happening when you're
Yeah,
going through it, and you
yeah,
need the support. And even if you're going through it, you don't know how to ask for help. You don't know how to ask.
yeah, that's true. That's true. So today we have an interesting topic. We are going to talk about family issues. About because especially when you are maybe your parents are South Asian and you become South
Hmm.
Asian American. Those are like two different cultures,
Hmm.
and we are really like to know from you. What problems they face and how you have seen in your clients.
Yeah. No, it's a really important topic. And, I'm going to talk about South Asian Americans and South Asians because a lot of our family values are actually even back in the homeland in India and Pakistan and there's so much westernization now that the same issues are arising there as well. So I think it can be applied to, our families in the homeland and here, but it's a lot of different family issues. Um, Also I want people that are, viewing this to feel free to jump in, to ask questions. I want it to be interactive, and Orvi too. I want this to be conversational if you'd like to, just asking questions and us talking about things.
Sure, sure. Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. Um, yeah, should I start with anything or just kind of go into it?
Yeah, I would what major family issue you have seen till now?
There's so many, and it kind of depends on so many different factors. Sometimes it's when people came. If we're talking about South Asian Americans, how long have they been in this country? Because there's so many different waves of immigrants, and there's such a big population now. So I think according to the last community survey, there are 5.4 million South Asians in the US, and by 2060 it'll be 1 in 10 Asians. So we're a growing population, but some of the issues are tied to um, how old you are, what your identity is like. Also, there's, just broadly, um, a lot of times, if it's our parents that immigrated, or now even our grandparents, our values are different. Our identity is different. And that can range in terms of dating, career, how we dress, or how we communicate. So it's so many different things. Um, but in terms of the waves of immigration, so, South Asians have been in this country for a really long time. You know,
Yeah.
the first people came actually in the 1700s, and then in the 1800s, Punjabi Sikh farmers came, or Punjabi Sikhs came, and they were farmers in California, and they intermixed, and there's like this whole Indian community, and they couldn't bring their wives, so they brought, they intermarried with a lot of, Mexican women. And so there's like this Indian Mexican community that's been in California for a long time. But more recently, the waves of South Asians have been, in the 1960s with white collar. So a lot of us, our parents came in the 1960s or 1970s, and we grew up here. Or you have other people that came in the 1980s, 1990s, or 2000s, and to now, so it kind of depends. And they're all different, right? So in the 1960s, it was a lot of people coming to college or white collar skill, like doctors, engineers, things like that. In the 1980s and 1990s, it was still that, but also like more blue collar workers, like people that own, stores, or,
Yeah.
more other kinds of labor, or, IT professionals. Um, and now it's just a mix of everybody. So some of the issues are related to kind of when they came, right? How long they've been in this country, and also their own personal family values. If they're very conservative, and or they're very religious, and how much the child also takes in those values and it resonates. So, first of all, it has to do with where you're at, right? And also generationally. So, Urvi, you came to this country, I think, did you get married and then come? Or
Yeah, like
so,
7 years ago.
yeah. So, and how old were you?
33.
So you would be considered first generation,
Yeah.
so you're the one that came. You and your husband came. So, my parents were the first gen. My dad came a long time ago in the 1960s for university, and then my mom came in the 70s. They got married in India, it was arranged, and then they came. And then I was my parents are here, but I was born in India, and my brother was born here, but most of our lives have been in the US.
Mhm.
So the way that we say generationally, if you're born here or you came before the age of 18,
Mhm.
you're second generation. So, that means your parents so you still have a lot of those values. Your parents there might be differences in language, or, a lot of more pronounced things that, they did in the homeland, right? So you could eat Indian food all the time, or, maybe that you had to mediate for your parents. Um, but when you're second gen, like even for your son, it is this negotiation of, okay, am I American? Am I Indian? What am I, right?
Yeah.
Because the values might be different. The way that they see themselves are different. So I used to go back to India in the summers, but for a lot of second gens and now third gens, right? So like my friends all have kids, or I see a lot of other clients that are third gens where it was their grandparents that came now, and so their parents were here and they have more Indian values, it's that intermix. But then now, how do they kind of identify in terms of their values and their ethnicity? So, in terms of, we call it acculturation. So, you're first gen, I'm second gen. My kid or your kid's kid would be third gen, right? And their kids would be fourth gen. So it's the generation, but it's different, right? So, you grew up in India. A lot of how you see the world might be from your experiences, right? So for me, even though I know India and my summers were spent there, the way I was socialized is here, which is America, which is very independent, right? It's,
Yeah.
do what you want, very, date, like, there's different norms, different values attached. So, especially for a lot of second generation individuals, they feel that they don't fit, right? Or that there's a clash between the independent values
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of collectivistic values. So when I say collectivistic values, a lot of South Asians and, people that, are from Pakistan, India, Maldives, all of those countries in South Asia and that region, we share culture, right? Some of those values are, even if our religion is different, even if we're from a different place, the values are the same. So respecting your elders, we're living with families, right? So I
Yeah.
live with my parents, I live with my grandparents, we're all in the same house, right? And that's the norm, right?
Yeah.
Or that you see yourself in relation to your family or your community, right? It's not, oh, it's just me, right? You're seeing yourself as a representation, as part of the bigger group, as part of the bigger family, right? So what you do is not just your choice. It's like the family choice, right?
Yeah.
And so some of that's collectivistic, right? So it's not just you, it's not the independent values that when you come into the US, it's like, oh, you do it yourself, right? Everything is yourself.
Yeah.
You go to school, but it is much more personal choice. Um, in terms of collectivistic values also, it's respecting your elders. It might be seeing yourself in the group, but it also, living together. Um, Also, one of the things you asked in terms of issues is also expectations, right? So if you're picking a career, your family might have a lot
Yeah.
of input of, oh, become a doctor, become an engineer, become something specific, right?
Yeah.
Because it's not just your choice. They see it as everybody's choice, right? Or
Yeah.
even dating, right? So it's like, oh, well, you have to, it's not your choice for who you marry because that's part of our family. That's that we're part of this
Yeah.
decision. We're
That's
part of this group.
yeah.
So, and typically, that's how my parents were, and even in India, though, even in a lot of South Asian countries, that's changing. You see like a lot more love marriages, you
Yeah.
see a lot more Westernization in terms of those independent values even coming. But here, some of the issues for second gens and third gens is how do we negotiate that? Because you weren't raised in South Asia, right?
Yeah.
So your experience is different. So you might want to be an artist, but your mom and dad are like, no, why
No.
would you be an artist? Like you won't pay your
Yeah.
bills, like, you
Yeah,
know?
I would say 80% of the parents want their kid either to get in engineering or
Hmm.
doctor or
Hmm.
lawyer or something like that.
Exactly. And it's not, they see it as this is not just your choice. This affects all of us, right?
Yeah.
You want money, you want to be secure. If you have a high income, then the family is secure, right? Because part of the collectivistic values is that this is not just for you. Your
Yeah.
parents are going to get older. There's the expectation of you have to take care of your parents,
That's
right?
that's really
You
true.
have to financially provide just like they financially provided for you. So
Yeah.
this is a big joint decision. So like I said, for a lot of second gens and third gens, those values might not resonate with them, especially, like you've come here and my parents came here. Sometimes people come with their whole family, right?
Yeah.
They're all their siblings, all their cousins, they bring their parents over. There's more family in the US than there is there. Sometimes it might be that it's just one family coming,
Yeah.
right? And so the child, especially if they don't have other South Asian friends or they're not in that South Asian community, or even if their parents are not even in that South Asian community, their identity changes, right? Because they have to adjust to this new country, right?
Yeah.
So we call it the process of acculturation. So, and it affects first gen, second gens, third gens, anybody, America is very multicultural, but we all came from somewhere, right? And it is, in general, it's the process in which you acculturate. So before it was assimilate, right? Like, oh, we ignore all of our values and we're just independent now. That's not how it is. Now it's picking and choosing what resonates with you in terms of values. So what do you take that's independent, that might be American,
Mhm.
and what do you take that might be more collectivistic, right? So, for me, it might be I take care of my mom, right? I take care
Yeah.
of my parents, or I live with my parents, but I chose my career. Like they didn't, I wanted to be something that maybe they didn't, but it is negotiating. What are your collectivistic and what are your independent values, right? What resonates with you? A lot of second gens might not want to have an arranged marriage, or might say, you know what, I need to choose who I love, and they have this romantic love, right?
Yeah.
Or, they view things more independent, but it's a negotiation of picking and choosing now what resonates with who you are, not what your parents are, but what do you choose that might be Indian or South Asian or Pakistani, whatever those values are, and what is independent, right? So it might be, well, with dating, I want to do my own thing, or with my profession, I want to do my own thing, or maybe I don't want to live with my parents, and that's something that I don't share with my parents, right? It also could be food, right? Like maybe it's the process. It comes down to everything. How you dress can be with the culture. Like your mom might dress in Indian clothes, but you don't dress in Indian clothes, right?
Yeah.
Because that's not who you are, right? It might
Yeah.
be, I feel more American. I'm not. Why am I going to wear a salvar? You know, given your worldview and your experience. Sometimes the issues are also if your parents are very different, or even your grandparents, right? And your views, your values might be different. So it's an occult, so that can be intergenerational. So, oh, I don't share the same values my grandmother does, right? In terms of caste or class, or,
Yeah.
oh, she thinks I should marry a specific patel, right?
Yeah.
And you don't share, like, that's not important to you,
Yeah.
right? So there's a lot of intergenerational. So you might be different from your parents, you might be different from your grandparents, right? And so that can cause conflict in terms of the difference. Another issue is that how different you are from them can cause a gap, right? So your parents are one way and there's problems, right? Because you're more Americanized than them. And they don't understand where you're coming from, or you might not understand why they communicate a certain way, or why some things are important to them. Another issue is that you might be very different from, say I came, and the way that I view life or my customs are very different from American customs. I have a hard time adjusting to this country. And so we call that acculturative stress, where it's like a hard time adjusting and negotiating some of the things I'm talking about, right? So
Yeah.
how do I pick and choose, and how do I live in a way that I feel like me, but also I'm able to function in American society?
Mm-hmm.
So that can cause a lot of problems. In parenting, I mean, in families, one of the things is parenting, right?
Yeah.
So you're a parent. So, some of the issues you're going to experience might be different from what your mom and dad did, because they're here now. And even in South Asia, because of the westernization, parenting might look very different from how our parents were raised or how our grandparents were raised,
Yeah.
given how different the views are, about love or career or independence, right? That we're talking about.
Yeah, that's true. So, because you mentioned parenting, I would like to share a conversation with one
Yeah,
of my friend. So here we put baby to separate room, right,
yeah,
from
yeah.
day one. And if you see back in our country, like when I was pregnant, my mom and my mother-in-law and
Mm-hmm.
everyone was here, and they're like, your heartbeat is baby's heartbeat, so
Mm-hmm.
you don't separate them
Mm-hmm.
till few
Mm-hmm.
years, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that was really different. And sometimes it's difficult when you talk with other moms who are from
Yeah.
other cultures. Like
Yeah.
they are raising a certain way, and the way your parenting style
Mm-hmm.
is different, right? So there you can see there is a lot of difference between the cultures.
Yeah, I'm actually really happy that you brought that subject up. I actually I contributed to an article on this. It's called co-sleeping. In South Asian cultures and most actually all collectivistic countries, so non-American, non-white cultures,
Yeah.
this co-sleeping is very, very common.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Like I had a moms group, and there were we were three moms who
Yeah.
were doing co-sleeping, and we observed that if you do the baby co-sleeping,
Mm-hmm.
then when the baby wakes up in the morning, he is happy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that we have observed. Like other moms also told me, like,
Mm-hmm.
then he is not cranky when he wakes
Mm-hmm.
up. Like he
Mm-hmm.
wakes up with a smile, and
Mm-hmm.
which makes you at ease, and you don't get cranky too.
Yeah. No, and it makes a lot of difference. I mean, and I think what you're really talking about is the difference in values, right?
Yeah.
So here, especially, if we're looking at like a lot of mainstream American white culture, it's very independent, right? So the baby sleeps by themselves. The
Yeah.
parents sleep by themselves. Oh, if they're crying, let them cry, right? Like they need to learn how to be independent, how to take care of themselves, right? But that's not how it is in our culture. In South Asian culture, like you're saying, you don't leave them by themselves, right? You're
Yeah.
next to them. And it's interesting because, psychology studies, we've found that that co-sleeping does, like you're saying, provides a lot of security and attachment. For babies and children, a big part of their development is attachment, right?
Yeah.
So how secure is that attachment between the mother and the baby, or the baby and the father, right? So the co-sleeping, actually, studies have found that it's really benefits their health, their heartbeat. They have less anxiety, like you were saying, they're happier. And also, even physical health, they're like I'm saying, the heart rate's lower, their blood pressure, they're able to also, as they grow up, with the co-sleeping, they're better able to handle problems, because they have that more secure attachment. So when things get hard, they're able to work it out and manage it. um, it's also interesting because now a lot of white Americans are now finding, oh, this is a good thing, and so now they're starting to do it. But it is a difference, right? And it's one that's very common with collectivistic. So if you look at people from Africa, if you look at Latino people, this is common. There's a
Yeah.
reason we've been doing it for so long, and it's working, you
Yeah.
know? But it goes back to values, right? How you see yourself in relation to that group, right? How attached are you? How do you express care? The way that we express care is different, right? So, it's interesting. I had, a client today, and what comes up in a lot of my work, because most of my work, it's with even with first gens, even Orvi, like, my parents and your views are changing. You're having to deal with these issues of parenting and co-sleeping, where if you were in India, this wouldn't even be a topic of conversation,
That's true.
right?
That's true. It's like natural. You sleep on the same
Yeah.
bed. What's the big thing in that?
But now you have to see, okay, what is important to you, and what do you want to change? So even what we're talking about now is the acculturation process. And I have other clients that are also first gen, where they came here and they're having to navigate parenting, which is different from their parents, where their parents might be, oh, you only feed the baby this and that, but they're like, no, well, it's okay if they eat pancakes,
Yeah.
or it's okay if I don't just control him. Like, it's that I just tell him what to do. I want him to do things by himself and learn. So even with that, there's a difference in values, where it might not be in South Asia, where it's like, oh, just tell the child what to do, versus let him do what he wants, and
Yeah.
learn and develop his own sense of self, but also have the collectivistic values. And you might be having to navigate how you want to do parenting, even outside of what you knew.
That's true. Because you brought up that, I also when I went to the doctor when my kid was small, very
Yeah.
small, right? So there was a difference of force feed, like, you just want them to
Yeah.
eat, and the other thing was let them eat by themselves
Yeah.
to learn. Those were two different, I would
Mm-hmm.
say, dilemma. And
Mm-hmm.
what to do, like, I literally get confused. Sometimes they don't eat at all when
Yeah.
they give them, and sometimes because they don't eat, they get
No.
cranky, so you try to
No.
force feed them.
Yeah.
It's also like different cultural value.
Mm-hmm. And then you have to decide what do you want to do?
Yeah,
Both things now. So how do you want to see things? You know?
true.
And I think co-sleeping is a good one, because and you might have to be navigating, okay, some people don't understand the co-sleeping,
Hmm.
and how are you managing that where, well, this is normal to me, but I'm faced by this negative comment.
Yeah,
So how are you negotiating and coping with that and making meaning where, no, this is me, but I understand this is different, but not letting it negatively impact you.
yeah, that's true.
So that's really, that's a significant issue with babies and small children, but it has to do with attachment. And sometimes, even if it's not the co-sleeping, how you care for your child is different. How you communicate with your child, even in terms of physical touch, might be different. For South Asians and other cultures too, we do the malish with the babies. You
Yeah,
know, there's a lot of physical touch that we do that also kind of helps with attachment. That might be different when you're raising a child here.
yeah, that's
Um,
true.
and it might be different than, oh, we're not giving praise or we're not hugging, but we're doing these other things.
Yeah.
you know? um, so other parenting issues is when the child grows up, right? So
Mhm.
how it goes back to some of the bigger things, which you might have to do with your own child, right? So what happens if they don't want to do the things that you value, right? So the career, or even say when they start dating, right?
Mhm.
That's actually a very big issue in terms of this intergenerational and family conflict.
Mhm.
It's dating, right? So
Yeah.
who's acceptable to your parents or your family versus who do you want to date? So
So, like, oh, sorry.
yeah.
So, have you seen, like, because parents doesn't want their kids to date versus the parents who are okay if their kids are
Hmm.
dating?
Hmm.
Like, what is your experience?
Well, it actually this is a very big issue, and it has been for a very long time with even for people that were even for me. So I'm old now, but I see with a lot of my clients that are young that they're doing the same thing. So we're South Asian, so depending on our parents' views, they might have had a love marriage, they might have had arranged marriages. My parents had an arranged marriage, but some of my aunts had love marriages, and South Asians, like our age, right? So they might understand, oh, we understand romantic love. That's a thing that we now understand. And so some parents are more traditional than others, where they're like, we just want you to be happy. And they trust their children to choose a partner. And that's the value. I want you to be happy, and you can
Mhm.
choose whoever you want. Some people are more traditional or more conservative, where they want to take an active role in who their child dates, right? Or marries more. And also, dating is a very Western concept.
Yeah.
In India now, it's like, oh, they might introduce you and you don't get married right away. And
Yeah.
it is that dating process, but the end goal is to get married,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and that's still very collect. You don't just date somebody to date. You date them or you meet them to get married and you have children, and this is what you do, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of times here, again, given values and given ethnic identity, like what resonates with you, how you see yourself, um, parents don't understand dating, right? So like in my generation, it's like, well, why would you date? Like there is no concept of dating. So one of the issues is that sometimes kids then they're living separate lives.
Mhm.
So for a lot of South Asian children or children teens, who they are at home is very different than who they are outside. right? They live one life at home, which might be more traditional. They're eating Indian food. They're living this life that their parents want them to live. But when they leave the home, they're a totally different person because they're not able to be themselves at home, right? Their parents don't accept that. So a lot of times kids, and it doesn't necessarily mean they're one way or another, but especially with dating, they might hide who they're dating.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They might not be telling their parents the truth because their parents won't understand. Or maybe they're dating somebody that they know their parents won't approve of, or they're too scared, right?
Mm-hmm.
And, and for a lot of people too, it might be that they're scared of what their parents might do, right?
Yeah.
Oh, if my parents find out, then I have to break up. Or in some cases, my parents might disown me, right?
Mm-hmm.
Depending on caste and class and religion, it's like, depending on those values, say you're Hindu and you're dating a Muslim
Yeah.
guy and your parents don't like that, or say that you're dating, a white guy or a black guy or a Latino guy or a non-South Asian, then it's like, no, how you can't do that, right? And
Yeah.
so they don't want to do that conflict yet, unless either they're dating just to date and they're prepared to leave the family system because they know that their parents won't accept it, or
Okay.
they know ultimately that this won't work, right? But that depends on their values. I
Mm-hmm.
have clients, a number of clients, where either, even if they're South Asian and the other person is South Asian,
Mm-hmm.
they're different religions, or they're from different countries, or they're from different castes, and the family is like, no, you can't date this person. And the other person might be more acculturated, or the family might be more liberal, where they're like, no, of course you can date this person. And they're all South Asian, but they're like, one family might, and one set of parents might be okay, and the other is like, no, you have to date this specific person from our class, from our caste, from our area, our village, all of these things.
Yeah.
And then it depends on the individual, a lot of times second or third gen, where they're like, what's important to them? My own happiness, this person, or am I going to follow what my parents or my grandparents are saying and break up for their happiness or what they want to tell me to do?
Yeah.
So that can be a big issue.
So, as you mentioned, right, they have to decide what's their own value. Do
Mm-hmm.
you think due to this, like people get depression or anxiety?
So, this is just one area of family conflict. It's a big one, but like I'm saying, a lot of times, depending on your values, if you're not following them or doing things for other people that you don't agree with, you're going to have a lot of depression. You're going to have a lot of mental distress. So, South Asian American women as a whole that are college age have one of the highest rates of suicide, actually. It's
Yeah.
older Asian American women, including South Asian women above the age of 60 and college age, that have two of the highest rates of suicide.
Wow.
And part of that is because of these conflicts, right? Like, I love somebody, I can't marry who I want to marry, I can't do what I want to do in terms of my profession. You know, if you don't feel these important things that you have ownership over or power over, you're going to have mental distress. And I think the rate of mental illness for South Asian Americans is I think it's about 24% in the US. So South Asian Americans, 24%, given, that's significant.
Yeah.
East Asians is 22%.
Wow.
So this is a pretty significant thing, and a lot of it has to do with some of the issues that I'm talking about, like where there are culturative differences. There's a culturative stress. There might be intergenerational conflict, right? But
Yeah.
also family conflict. Um, so my dissertation actually was on, part of it was mental distress given family conflict, ethnic identity, and level of acculturation. So part of it is, when we were talking about earlier about second gens and third gens, sometimes you feel that you don't fit anywhere, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even though we're becoming more multicultural, say you live in an area where there aren't many people of color or many South Asians, right? So you feel that difference. I don't fit in with white people. I don't fit in when I go visit India. You're feeling like you're on an island,
Yeah.
right? And then you have all of these other issues of dating or profession, or I don't agree with my parents on certain things when it comes to like, their political views or their religion, or, just or gender. So another big piece of this is also gender, right? If you're a girl or a boy, all of those norms and expectations that are put on you, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of that can lead to depression, anxiety, suicidality, right? Because
Mhm.
you don't feel like you have power over your own life. But on top of that, you don't feel like you have social support.
Yeah.
If you aren't connecting with other people, like friends that you feel understand you and that you can understand, and you're having a lot of family conflict where it's just fighting within the family, you're very isolated,
Yeah.
and that can lead to like a lot of depression. And and then the person has to, then a lot of bad things could happen unless the person gets treatment or help or gets social support somehow, right? And they have to navigate their own ethnic identity and search for other people like them.
Yeah.
It's like, oh no, I'm not the only one. And then once they find people that are kind of going through the same things, it's different, right? You're not all alone with the struggles of being different from your family or these expectations. But if you don't have anybody, it's really challenging.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Like, I can totally relate because when I moved here,
Yeah.
uh, I didn't know anyone. Like, my
Mm-hmm.
husband had some of the his extended family here,
Yeah.
but from my side, no one was here.
Mm-hmm.
Unless there was only one friend of my dad.
Yeah.
And like you talk with the people on call, but that like
Yeah.
there is
Yeah.
a certain limit for that, right?
Mm-hmm.
You want physical interaction, like you want
Mm-hmm.
to meet, you want to go out with someone
Mm-hmm.
whom you can call friend.
Yeah.
And I totally agree with you, like we have a lot of lack of social
Mm-hmm.
support. And because you keep moving with your husband's job, or because
Yeah.
of your
Yeah.
job or
Yeah.
your family, and
Mm-hmm.
these things are in your mind, like every couple of years if you move, you have to make new friends,
Mm-hmm.
you have to
Mm-hmm.
adjust with the new place, new weather.
Mm-hmm.
That's so
Mm-hmm.
frustrating.
Mm-hmm.
That's so frustrating. I
It's
totally
really
agree with you.
stressful. And then how do you adjust? And also, depending on where you move, are you going to find other South Asians or South Asian Americans that understand where, you're talking about co-sleeping, and
Yeah.
they're like, "Oh no, you're crazy. Why are you doing, why are you doing that? That's so bad." You need people that can understand you, that can
Yeah.
understand your worldview, or even if they don't share it, they're open to that,
Yeah.
or that can understand your struggles. Oh, why aren't you telling your parents that you're dating somebody? Right? Or why are you only introducing them before you're going to get married? Like, you need people that can understand some of these things you're going through and connect.
Yeah.
But also being true to who you are. Sometimes also people, especially to survive, a lot of people like South Asians and other people from other countries,
Mhm.
they got rid of their values, right? They're like, oh, we have to be independent, we have to be as American as possible. They stopped speaking the language, they only ate American food. But that's kind of taking away their identity, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes people don't know how to adjust properly, where like, say you're moving all the time, then it's like, say you're in a small town, right?
Hmm.
You feel just to survive, you have to get rid of that piece of you,
Yeah.
and that can be really problematic too.
That's true. That's true. And even like
Like
there.
holidays, like you can't celebrate, like, say there's nobody else there to celebrate Holi, you're
Yeah.
gonna stop celebrating Holi.
Yeah, saying of holiday, you know what? Because my son understand what is Diwali, I travel continuously 2 years to
Yeah.
India just to celebrate Diwali. So he knows what
Mm-hmm.
Diwali is, how, families celebrate
Mm-hmm.
it together.
Mm-hmm.
And it's important, right?
Yeah.
It's not just about the festival, it's about
Yeah.
getting everyone together.
Yeah. It
Yeah.
is. And you were able to do that, and some people that are South Asian, or they can't,
Yeah.
right? So they miss that. Like, growing up, I never had, I couldn't participate in those holidays. All my cousins did, all our family is there, but my brother and I were here, so we never had that experience, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So what's important to us might be different from our parents or even other people that I meet. They're like, oh, their whole family is here and they got to celebrate all these things.
Yeah.
So it's, how do you make sense of that and what's important to you, or how do you regain it?
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Yeah.
Because now it's like, oh, well, this is important to me. This is important to my values as an adult. I'm going to start celebrating this because this is part of my identity too.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And that's where, they, when kids are not able to celebrate, they don't know how to
Mm-hmm,
celebrate.
mm-hmm,
And they don't know about Indian festival. They
mm-hmm,
just know about
mm-hmm.
Christmas and Thanksgiving, and
Yeah.
because everything is celebrated in
Mm-hmm.
school and
It's very
they care
Western.
about it, right? So
Yeah.
they know only those things, and
Mm-hmm.
it's not kids' fault. Yeah.
Well, and that's part of the negotiation. So when I grew up, no, there was nobody that's you don't celebrate those Indian holidays, and or you don't celebrate the South Asian holidays, like Eid or Diwali or any of these things, right? But you celebrate Christmas. So, and if you're friends, it's like, well, they're celebrating Christmas. We have to celebrate Christmas, right? So then your family starts celebrating Christmas
Yeah.
because that's just what the whole community is doing, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah,
And
that's
so
true.
then it's different. You're not the same, you're different from your parents, even where then now this has meaning for you. Even if you're not Christian, it's like, well, we're Hindu, but we exchange gifts, because
Yeah.
that becomes a new culture. So for us, like, I'm second gen, we're Hindu, but we have the Christmas tree and we celebrate, Thanksgiving. And it is this new culture, which it has meaning for me. It might not have meaning for my cousins in India or even my
Yeah.
parents as much. But now it's like this whole new culture that we're in, depending on what's important to you and how you grew up and how you were socialized.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And because like you have holidays on Christmas, you can, meet other people, or you can
Mm-hmm.
invite your
Mm-hmm.
friends and stay over. But while you don't have holidays during Diwali, so even if
I
you are
know.
planning to
I know.
celebrate, you have to find out like on weekends you can do
Mm-hmm.
something,
Mm-hmm.
but you
Because you
cannot
don't have the
celebrate
same.
those
Yeah.
traditions. Yeah.
Yeah, there's no holiday. There's
Yeah.
no school, it's changing a little bit, you know, like you can ask for off, but it's not the same importance,
Yeah.
as society is getting more,
Hmm.
multicultural, like, because South Asians are the fastest immigrating group,
Yeah.
so in a few years, maybe we will have those holidays off.
That's true.
But
That's true.
but that's the thing, it becomes this new thing, and even now, like, even first gens are like, oh, well, it's Christmas, so now we have this new culture where all of our Indian family friends are going to come and we're still going to have dinner now,
Yeah.
because we all
That's,
have off and everybody's doing this, so let's make it a desi
yeah.
Christmas or whatever it is, but
I totally agree with you.
yeah, and it is, part of the parenting and part of the family issue, like you're saying, is what do you want to pass down to your children? What values, what things that you have meaning about, do you want to make sure they understand and value as well? So for you, I think going, back to India and allowing them to understand the meaning of Diwali and experience that, the more you do that, the more that you make that part of their life, they're going to carry that. That's going to be meaningful to them. And they're going to pass that down to their children that are probably going to be in this country too, right?
Yeah.
So it's part of the parenting now, is what is valuable to you that you want to make sure that you pass down to your children.
Hmm. Yeah. So as we are discussing so much, yeah. So I have one last question, because I know there are a lot of topic and lot of issues, and this topic can go on and on. Yeah. So as we already discussed, right? We have a different values and different culturation
Yeah,
issues.
yeah.
So do you think due to this different values and different culturation things, kids get a split personality issue?
So, I when I was saying ethnic identity, so sometimes, like I'm saying, the collectivistic values and the independent values clash, right? So that can cause a conflict, right? So it is, oh, well, like we're even saying, like, they're friends, like they're very independent, right? They might be Christian, they might be, like, out of the house at 18, and they can, their family isn't involved or doesn't share the same values that they do, right? So for them, the negotiation becomes hard, where, oh, my family thinks one way, my friends think another way, what do I think? how do I see myself, right? Because we're still brown, right? On the outside, we're still brown. We might wear turbans. We might look different in terms of our clothing, what we're eating, all of these things. A lot of second gens, even first gens, you have to navigate who you are, right? So the division becomes, and for second and third gens, it is, how do you identify? So a lot of people that assimilate, right, they take on all the independent values, or they're like, oh, I'm American. They don't even identify with being South Asian anymore, right? They might reject all of those values. They might not eat Indian food. They might be very independent. They might not have some of the same views on family, they might not share their parents' belief or those cultural beliefs, right? So that can be a split. That can cause a lot of conflict. The other issue is, like I'm saying, if you're not around people that are like you, right? Like we said, like you don't fit in anywhere, right?
Yeah.
So you might start thinking negatively of your group, right? Oh, Indian people, you might even have negative views on being South Asian, right? Like, I don't identify with that. I'm not that, right?
Yeah.
And that can cause a lot of problems. So it's interesting. So there's a whole developmental model. You know how children develop? There are so many models and how we develop ethnically and racially, actually. So a lot of times it might be, especially for second gens like your son or even me, it might be that you grow up in like a Western community, right? There might be a lot of white people, and it is, how do we navigate those differences, right? Our friends might be white or other cultures. They're not South Asian, right?
Yeah.
So how do we see ourselves in relation to that? How do we communicate? How do we come across? How do we, right? Are we trying to mimic our friends? Are we taking in those collectivistic Indian or South Asian values and, projecting that? Or are we, some of it is, and it comes even in little things, right? Like taking South Asian food to school and eating it at the cafeteria, right? Even those little things can produce a lot of emotion, right? Oh, I'm not eating a hamburger. I'm eating like a samosa, right? Like, so even these little things go into how we see ourselves, how we see the differences. Sometimes if we see the differences negatively, that affects who we are. And like you're saying, the difference in terms of our ethnic identity. A lot of times we're raised in multicultural communities or oftentimes white communities. And like I'm saying, we're not around people like us. When that happens, sometimes we don't, especially when you reach a point like, maybe we experience something racist, right? Or somebody says something that's like, oh, well, you're Indian or you're exotic. And you're like, you're reminded of the difference and you're trying to make sense of it. And you're trying to really think deeply about who you are. A lot of times people in college or young adults, and some of my clients even close to 30s, they're now like navigating, I want more South Asian friends. I
Okay.
want more South Asian. You're making a very intentional effort to find people like you that can
Yeah.
share your experiences, that share your views. So what happens, interestingly, is in high school and college and even in that emerging adulthood, you'll find a lot of second and third gens looking for people that are like them, so they can also form more better of who they are. So there isn't that big divide of us versus them.
Yeah.
It's like this whole population of, no, these are people that relate to me, that I'm part of. And it helps that negotiation of values and family and all of those things. But they're able to say, oh, I'm South Asian American, right? I'm not South Asian, I'm not Indian, but I'm a joint of the two,
Yeah.
you know? But it's all of us go through that, right? Especially when you're born here or you've stayed here for a while, or even if you've come here, how much of that from the homeland, how much of those values, how much of that do you want to make part of you?
Yeah. That's true. That's
And
true.
it's picking and choosing, and it's a choice, and it's really being aware of yourself and finding social support and community to also help within that journey.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree with you that social support and support of family members can
Mm-hmm.
really help reduce these issues. I'm sorry.
And how you communicate. Urvi, you're very open with your child. You'll have these conversations. So it's not just, oh, you have to do things my way. Are you okay?
I'm sorry.
No, are you okay?
Yeah, I'm good now.
Yeah, I mean, so it's also being open and hearing your child and the communication within the family.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Thank you for the wonderful advice.
Yeah.
It was really great session, and I'm sure me and the viewers learned a lot. And we are going to meet next Friday again with a
Mm-hmm.
different topic. So I will be posting everyone soon about the next topic as well.
Mm-hmm.
And thank you so much, Devika, for being
Yeah.
with us, sharing your knowledge with us, and helping South Asian community to improve, and we can have a social support for everyone.
No, thank you, Orvi, for making this platform possible and sharing as well. I enjoy this conversation with you, and you sharing some of your things as well. So thank you for making this possible. I think it's really important. So again, I appreciate you.
Thank you so much. Have a wonderful night.
You
Happy
too.
Friday.
You too. You too. Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Bye.
Okay, bye.